Dear friends of Iranian-American Forum, Mr. Sepehr Akhavan and the board of Southern California chapter of SUTA have done an excellent job, and I want to thank them. They asked me to send you a few words about the SUTA, its mission and vision, and how it was formed. Since I am currently in Hamburg, Germany, I am not able to attend your today's gathering. The formation of SUTA had two main reasons. The first, 1,000 graduates of Sharif University and its professors were spread around the globe and with no contact or not much contact with the university in Iran. There was no organization in the United States to defend the interests of the Iranian academic community. SUTA was organized in a global reunion in 2000 in San Diego, in which 700 graduates, former university presidents, and the president of the Sharif University at the time, with two of his deputies, attended. Soon after the formation of SUTA, Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, IEEE, informed its members that at the direction of OFAC, they have to stop publishing papers written by the Iranian members. SUTA took the initiative and responded in a 50-page response, practically showing that the ban on publication is against the bylaws of IEEE. And not only that, it is also against the bylaw, the ban or the sanction law. It created a worldwide protest of IEEE members. Finally, OFAC accepted that the sanction law does not apply to scientific exchanges. Some other professional associations tried also to repeat the ban on publication, but they were also forced to change their policies. At the current time, it is possible that sanctions against Iranians return, and we must be watchful. I wish your organizations and for the forum success. Thank you very much. Faridun Hojabri.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first Iranian-American Innovation Forum Conference and the 10th Global SUTA Reunion and Festival. I am Sepehr Akhavan, President of the Southern California chapter of the Sharif University of Technology Association, and it's my honor and privilege to welcome you all to this amazing gathering. This has been such an amazing journey for us putting this event together, and it's in many ways the first for us. As SUTA, we had these reunion events for a long time, past decades, but this is the first time we tried to reach out to other organizations and university environments to see how a collaborative system would work. And it worked just amazingly well. Just by judging who is here, judging by the amazing quality of mind and spirit, ladies and gentlemen, that we have been able to assemble today, this is an amazing achievement and beginning for a future movement. This fills me with pride because I myself am a proud alumnus of UC Irvine. I did my PhD here and I defended in 2016. And UC Irvine helped me define my own intellectual journey in a fundamental way. And it fills me with great joy that I myself, an alumnus of this amazing institution, have been involved with this event with so many of you. And thank you all for being here and for agreeing being here today with us. It means so much to us. Let me begin by thanking Mr. Pirooz Parvarandeh, founder of Iranian-American's Contribution Project, for being with us in every step of the way. His impact was amazing and helped us organize this unique event. Thank you very much, Pirooz. Thank you, Dr. Alidad Mafi Nizam. He couldn't be with us, sadly, but we are going to hear a video from him later in the program. Thank you, Professor Touraj Daryai, who also couldn't be here with us today due to a scheduling conflict, but his Center of Persian Studies at UC Irvine made so much of today's program possible. And I should say thank you, UC Irvine. I'm so proud that it's my alma mater that we are holding this special event. And my dear, dear colleague, whose role was so indispensable in organizing this event, Dr. Omid Ismaili. We couldn't have done this without you, Omid. I sincerely thank the board of SUTA Southern California for the dedication and the diligent work to make this event happen. Mrs. Mitra Zaimi, Dr. Mohammad Fatehi, Mrs. Farima Wahabzadeh, Dr. Ali Bulurchi, Mrs. Shirin Vakilian, Mr. Mansour Rad, and Dr. Mehran Rahmani. So many people to thank for this unique event. We are holding this event for the first time, and we are hoping this becomes a starting point for similar events moving city by city, nationwide, introducing the contributions and the innovations our proud Iranian-American community has done to the US and to the world. But main issue, ladies and gentlemen, is our speakers, the distinguished minds alongside the people I just mentioned who have accepted our invitation to be here with us today and will share in their vision what innovation means to them in work and in life, given how much they have contributed to innovation in America and in the world. They have contributed technological innovation, scientific innovation, social innovation, all kinds of innovation, such fundamental and seminal contribution to the world. We are honored and privileged to host distinguished speakers. Dr. Sholeh Nikzad from NASA JPL, Professor Iraj Ershaqi from USC, Professor Nasreen Rahimieh from UC Irvine, Mr. Pirooz Parvarandeh, CEO of Aquanshop, Professor Ali Khadem Hosseini from UCLA, Honorable Nahal Iravani Sani, Honorable Judge of the California Supreme Court, Mr. Babi Yazdani, a leading investor in technology companies, Professor Youssef Bozorgnia from UCLA, Professor Behrokh Khoshnevis from USC, Professor Babak Hasibi from Caltech, Professor Hamid Jafarkhani from UCI, Professor Mahdab Jafari from UCI, Professor Payam Haydari from UCI, Professor Mona Jarrahi from UCLA, Professor Ali Haji Miri from Caltech, Professor Nayere Tohidi from Cal State University Northridge, Dr. Mehdi Hatamian, CEO of 2 Pi Sigma, Dr. Alidad Mafi Nizam, President of West Asia Council, and Mrs. Maryam Rufugaran, a transformational inventor in wireless technology and the CEO and founder of Movandi, and a big supporter of this event from the very beginning. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Maryam. Ladies and gentlemen, this event is all about knowledge and education and deepening our ties together so we can think together and we can build together based on shared values. When we honor and thank our great speakers here today and those who have come to listen and to engage in a dialogue with them, we have to pay homage and thanks to the women and men of knowledge and high moral standing who have come before and on whose shoulders so many today's giants stand. The first person to honor today is Dr. Muhammad Ali Mujtahidi, the founder of Sharif University, who 52 years ago established an institution that has nurtured so many brilliant minds. Another key person in the establishment of Sharif University is Dr. Pirooz Parvarandeh, a pioneering educator and the father of very active and well-known technology and education investors and founder of Code.org, Parvarandeh's brothers. Dr. Parvarandeh is the recipient of SUTA's Lifetime Achievement Award this year and will be honored in SUTA event in Seattle this afternoon. And also, the last but not the least, founder of SUTA, Dr. Freidoun Hojabri. Years and years of dedication has led SUTA to be in a place that is standing right now. While the key founders of Sharif University over half a century ago were men, arguably the most famous graduate of Sharif is the late great Professor Maryam Mirzakhani, the first woman in history to ever win the Fields Medal in mathematics. I'm thus especially pleased that we have so many women leaders among our speakers and the audience today. With so much inspiration here in the room and so much to cover when it comes to how these great minds see innovation and how we can move forward together and build a better future, I would like to introduce Mr. Pirooz Parvarandeh, our first keynote speaker today, who is going to set the stage for us thematically and intellectually. Mr. Pirooz Parvarandeh has over 30 years of experience in the high-tech sector. He joined Maxim Integrated in 1987 when it was a pre-IPO company. During his 27-year tenure at Maxim, he has played a key role in Maxim growth to a $2.4 billion a year. He led the creation of Maxim Automotive Business Unit from the ground up. The business unit has grown to have revenue well in excess of $100 million a year. Currently serves in senior advisory and consulting roles in a broad range of technologies such as Roche's DNA sequencing unit and multiple startups in semiconductor, software, and systems area. Mr. Parvarandeh currently serves as Chief Operating Officer of Aquentia. He is also President and the founder of IACP, Iranian-American's Contributions Project. I wish all a happy and productive day. I would like to ask Mr. Parvarandeh to come to the podium for the first keynote speech. Thank you very much.
First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Akhavan, Dr. Ismaili, and Dr. Mafi Nizam for the incredible dedication and work that they've done to put this conference together. I've witnessed it firsthand, and I can't say how proud I am of the accomplishments that they've created in bringing this group together today. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our hosts, the Jordan Center and SUTA, who is a key, who is the key sponsor of this event. Putting that aside, I'm also very humbled and proud to be part of this organization's activities and to be, part of this group of people who are speaking to you today. So let me get going with, let's see. Okay, so I'll give you a little background on myself before I get into the primary talk. So as you have heard, I've been in the semiconductor industry for quite a while. I'm currently at Aquentia, where I'm a chief operating officer. I was a group president at Maxim and a CTO. And within that scope of work as a CTO, I led a few activities, one of which was to really lead a group of engineers and an organization called Maxim Labs, which engaged in pioneering research, at least for our company, that had a 3 to 5 year time horizon. And as a CTO, one of the things I needed to do was to also look at how do we improve the innovation capacity of an organization. So I formed what is called the Innovation Council at Maxim. And its job was to really do a lot of research and look at all the research that has happened around the world on promoting innovation and to adopt the best practices for enhancing innovation within the company. So that was one of the things I did at Maxim. And then later on in 2016, I founded this organization called the Iranian-Americans Contributions Project. So my full-time job is I'm the COO of a company, but my part-time job is to work on this nonprofit organization. And this nonprofit organization is non-political and has no religious affiliations. So the majority of my talk today is going to be on IACP. So by way of background, the question is, what is the history and why, what is the genesis of this organization, Iranian-Americans Contributions Project? I've been in the US for over 40 years, and I came here in 1977, where Iranian Americans were, they had a pretty good standing within the community. Nobody really bothered them, or it was just a normal thing. I lived through the hostage crisis. I've been through many of the rhetoric that has gone back and forth between the governments of Iran and America, where there have been, statements about axis of evil, terrorism, et cetera, whatever you want to call it. And I felt that there is, unfortunately, for the Iranian American community, there is a sense, or there is a guilt by association phenomenon that's happening. And so the question becomes, what is the identity of the Iranian American community, and should it be associated with all of these negative stereotypes that are propagated within the media? And I felt that that was really unfair and unjust, because I believe that our community has made tremendous contributions to America, and that's really not brought into focus in a proper fashion. So that's the genesis of the IACP organization. So to better describe what we're trying to do as part of this organization is, let's talk about some of the paradigms that are at work here. One of them is the galaxy versus star approach. Let me just advance my thing. Okay. Which I will expand on. And the difference here is that, the traditional approach for looking at contributions of a community have been to focus on the stars, the shining stars, the brightest stars, and really not really have the ability to look at all of the other contributors that we have within our community. The population of Iranian Americans is somewhere around 2 million in the U.S. How many teachers do we have? Who are the other people who provide service to this country? How many firefighters do we have? How many people do we have that are in public service? How many people do we have that are, physicians, but are maybe not as potentially as famous as others? So that's one of the objectives: is how do we show the galaxy, the holistic, the totality of the Iranian American community, as opposed to the brightest shining stars? The second paradigm here is one of distinguishing between success and contribution and service. So just to illustrate, there could be an individual who is a multimillionaire, and that's really the typical way in which we quantify success is really, the financial aspect of it, because it's easily quantifiable, it's easily, visible. But what about the teacher who is serving, who is teaching first grade students? What about the therapist, the behavioral therapist who is helping autistic children? What about those people who are providing service to America and who are helping our community? So there is a distinction that I'd like to make. The two are not mutually exclusive. There are people who are very successful and who have made tremendous contributions to America. But I'd like to make sure that we focus not necessarily on success, but on service and contribution. So the thing that we're doing is really both has a quantitative aspect, which I'll show you some examples of, and it's got a qualitative aspect. The quantitative aspect is primarily data, and the qualitative aspect is really stories. The other thing that I'd like to note about this particular activity is that it's got a long-term horizon. In other words, it's not something that's going to bear results in a matter of a month or a year. This is something that I hope will be a platform for the future and will last multiple generations for our community. So back to this picture of the star versus the galaxy. You know, this is an apt analogy in the sense that there are many shining stars that we have in our community, and those are the ones that we hear about. But we want to create a platform where the stars that are kind of in formation, you know, the young generation of people that are coming up through the ranks, they get some visibility. There are people who are stars in their own right, but they're not necessarily as visible as they should be. How do we shine? How do we create visibility for those individuals? And it's really, in my view, if we are able to portray this galaxy picture of our community, the holistic picture, then we've done a tremendous service to our community, right? So that's our intention. So, as a nonprofit organization, our mandate is to be educational and to inform. And so what we want to do is the information that we're providing is one that is going to hopefully have an impact on the narrative about Iranian-Americans. You know, are we terrorists? Are we the Shahs of Sunset? Are we hostage takers? What are we, right? And the question is, well, we could be all of the above, but I hope not, but that's the impression. But the narrative that we've kind of honed in on at IACP is that we are valuable contributors to the U.S. Right? That's the narrative that we are trying to create, or the data behind that narrative, so others can create this narrative. So valuable contributors, and that hence the name Iranian-Americans Contributions Project. Right? We believe that this narrative or this theme is a unifying theme because everybody in their own right is making a contribution and is providing value and service to this community and to the world by extension. So this initiative or this contributions project really taps into a highly multidisciplinary set of activities. For example, we're using software, technology, and algorithms such as data mining, machine learning, and visualization to create databases that are searchable, right? So we're tapping into technology in order to promote this narrative about valuable contributions. In addition to that, in addition to the data-centric aspect of this, we also have narratives because we believe that numbers alone are not going to tell the story of this community. We need stories, we need life stories that touch the heart, that basically tell more than what any set of numbers can possibly convey. And so in that regard, I'll show you some of the work that we've done. And so key to that is really having some articles that are long form about some of the key contributors in our community. In addition to that, what we want to do is we want to be a platform that collaborates with all the other nonprofit Iranian-American organizations that are like-minded, that are non-political and non-religious. Because we want, again, to bring this whole galaxy together under, in a holistic and unified fashion. Furthermore, we want this to be a participative activity. In other words, we want our community members to be inspired and to come forward and to build this narrative, to build this holistic picture of the galaxy, right? So how are we doing this? So what we've done is through that combination of technology that I just talked about, we have gathered data on about 20 different aspects of our community. For example, we've identified over 4,000 scholars whose totality has about 2.4 million citations. I think this number is low, and that's primarily because our algorithms are not as sophisticated as they need to be so that we can have a more broad reach. We found 40,000 patents that Iranian-Americans have authored. We found over 230,000 LinkedIn profiles, a substantial portion of which are engineering. We've found board members of various companies. We've done GDP contributions for various segments of our population, like the physicians. That's a direct GDP contribution. We've looked at what the political donations have been. We found 4,000 attorneys, CPAs, real estate agents, small businesses, over 9,000 physicians that have over 130 specialties. 3,400 dentists, nurses, therapists, so many people in the healthcare sector, and also in the public sector. We've identified teachers, public servants, police departments, fire departments, etc. So what is the picture? What is the message here? The message is that through data mining and some of these technologies, we're able to gather this information. And the keynote here is that all of this information is kept completely anonymous because we don't want to violate the sanctity and the privacy of our community members. We understand that there's sensitivity about publishing names and so on, and we are very, very mindful of that. So this provides some of the quantitative work that we've done to basically portray to our own community and to the community, and to the rest of our fellow citizens, what is it that this community has done? What is it that this diaspora, this immigrant community has done? We then take this data and we show it in a variety of forms. So it's shown graphically with these infographics. So this particular one is from the scholars that we've identified. Each of the circles really shows which university that scholar came from or which location the scholar came from. And the size and color of each of those circles really talks about the quantity or the number of professors or the number of publishers or the number of articles, et cetera. So there's some degree of correlation between the size of the circles and the amount of work that they've done in terms of publishing. Another kind of infographic that we have is really, this one came from our physician data. So it shows a heat map of where the physicians are located by county. So we can basically go on this infographic and really identify where the different physicians are, not by name, but just by population density. So we have the ability to portray this data in a variety of different forms. The other thing that we've done is, because we've got access to all these databases for people who have to pass certain certifications. In the case of the physicians, we've identified over 130 different specialties that they're engaged in. So the horizontal axis is the different specialties, and the vertical axis is the population density within that specialty. The purpose of showing these is that there's a lot of richness to this data. This is not the only content that we have. We did a search on LinkedIn, and you can see that there are, it might be a little difficult to see, but there's a classification by industry. There's about 35% of the people on LinkedIn are in engineering, 10% are in finance and banking, et cetera. And so we can basically do a stratification of who does what, and it shows that there's a very broad picture of this. The other important piece of this for us in each of our data sets is really to show the contributions of Iranian-American women. So we do a classification by gender to show that Iranian-American women are very active in the professions, right? So 40% of the LinkedIn profiles we have are for women. And this number varies by profession, but I think probably the highest percentage occurs in the area of law, right? Where there's over 40%, 45% of the practicing people in that profession are women. This particular statistic is important for us because why? Because the stereotype that is being propagated, willfully or unwillfully, about our country, the country of our origin, is one where the role of women, it appears to me, is diminished. And we want to highlight the fact that women, in fact, play a key role in America among our community, right? So we're very mindful of making sure that that's properly represented. This is another infographic that shows the number of patents that have been published as a function of time. And the thing that's amazing about this is that you can see it's got an exponential rise. In other words, in the early years, right after 1980, which is around the time when I came to the US, the number of patents was not very high. But then you can see that sometime around the 90s and the 2000s, that number starts going up substantially. And there could be a number of reasons for that, that one, a sociologist could probably try to explain. But the simplest thing that I can think of is that, the people of my generation who came in the 1980s, it took them a few years to really get through school, to basically figure out where they are, to get their footing, to establish themselves in industry, and then to start creating these patents. And then in addition to that, there's also been a very substantial inflow of first-generation immigrants, throughout the 80s, throughout the 90s, and the 2000s, et cetera, who've been coming to America and who've also been contributing in various fields of technology. We've also done another study to look at how many people are on boards of directors of public companies. So these are, again, just examples of the data that we've collected. And so this particular infographic, even though I haven't shown it, consists of over 600 companies. They're not all shown here, but the total market cap of these companies is in excess of $700 billion, right? So we have people of Iranian descent who are on boards of public companies whose market value is over $700 billion. So that was the data. That was the quantitative portion of what we're trying to do. What about the qualitative portion? What about the stories? What about, because numbers are not everything. Numbers are not going to provide the full picture. So IACP has conducted some very long form and systematic and detailed interviews with luminaries in our community. We've got over 90 of these under our belt, and these have been published on the Huffington Post and on medium.com. Very reputable organizations. And they're available online, but we've collected them under one umbrella. The thing that's unique about this is that it is a highly diverse set of disciplines that we've covered. So when you look at this table here, you can see that we have covered from in academia, in earth sciences, in economics, in electrical engineering, in medicine, microbiology, history, human cognition, you name it. There's at least 40 different fields that we have covered. And I'm very proud of this because what it shows is that our community is not monolithic. We have made contributions across the board in a tremendous number of fields, right? So that's message number one. And we're just scratching the surface. 90 people out of, this thousands and thousands and thousands of people that we can be covering is a tiny scratch. But basically, we're very proud of this work. The other thing that we've done is to make sure that the interview subjects are a balance between men and women. So we've been very cognizant of making sure that men and women are represented equally in their various fields of endeavor. Tremendous kudos and acknowledgement have to go to Jahandad Memarian, who is the author of this, and also Alidad Mafi Nizam, who has been helping tremendously in putting together these various articles. And Jahandad is here today with us. He's sitting in the back row. And I really want to acknowledge both of them, Jahandad and Alidad, for the tremendous amount of work that they've done in putting all this, compiling all this information together. These are all shown on our website. Now, so there's content that we have generated for under the umbrella of IACP, but in the spirit of being collaborative with all of the other organizations that are out there, there's tons of other content that we can tap into. Like, for example, the first one, Aftab, is an organization that represents artists in America. We'd like to be able to showcase the work of artists. There are many other organizations. I'm not going to go through them, but for example, with the IAIF, we have a very strong collaboration. So what we do is we bring the content from these various websites and we link to it, and we give credit to those various organizations. Again, we don't want to, we want to make sure that they get credit for the work that they've done. So we want to be an umbrella. We want to bring all of these different organizations together to showcase what their members have done. In the long-term view, what we want to do is we want this to be a participative platform where people who we cannot reach individually to can post their own stories. We would like Iranian-Americans, whenever they are engaged in public activity and community activity, to be able to post what they've done so that we can show the value and service that we are providing to this community. We have other features, for example, publicizing your startup or featuring your business, and I'll talk about those more. And hopefully we will get to a place where this platform becomes a mentorship platform where young generation Iranian Americans can connect to the more experienced ones and get the necessary mentorship. So here's a visual of where we are. At a high level, we have four key activities: the quantitative, which I've shown, the qualitative, which I've talked about, and then we're going to be launching the business side of it, which is to showcase the startups and various other professions. And then, of course, we need to recognize our donors. Now, the color coding of the boxes is that anything that's blue is started, the yellow is in development, and the red is in planning. So we're well along in the quantitative and the qualitative side. We're still working on the business and the donor recognition side. Within the business, of course, we want to allow a space for startups who have an Iranian-American affiliation to be featured. Again, we believe that that's a service that we can provide to our community, or people who have businesses that they want to feature. We believe that that would be a service. On the qualitative side, we've already generated the content. We have linked to our partner sites, and then we're working very heavily on user-generated content. People who want to come forth and say, I've done something for this country, can come forward and do that. And so that user-generated content can be things like life stories or any kind of community activity that they're participating in that they want to basically showcase to their fellow citizens. So, what are we doing? We are creating a platform which I hope will serve our community. One way in which we hope to serve the community is by creating the narrative and creating the data and creating the foundation for the statement that Iranian Americans provide valuable service to America. Right? We're trying to shape a narrative. We're trying to see if we can create the foundations for a brand. The second thing we're trying to do is we're trying to make this a multi-generational activity. In other words, I hope that, even though this is a part-time thing that I'm doing, I've got a day job, I hope that we can pass this torch on to future generations who can build on this platform, right? And that it will survive the test of time, that it will go on forever so that we can, become more empowered as a community. And I hope that I have conveyed enough about what we're trying to do. And I hope that you will help us in this movement and this activity to make a difference for our community. Thank you very much.